Hello, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on which part of the globe that you are on right now. As for myself, it's a sunny afternoon in Bali Island. Today, we are going to present to you our proposed scenarios of scenarios planning for Telkomsel's 5G for Indonesia.
Indonesia, the largest archipelago in the world, extending more than 5,000 kilometers from east to west and 1,000 kilometers from north to south.
So let's meet the task force team. We are working under the CEO, starting from our CFO, Rahmawan, our corporate planning, Asmi, our marketing, Rani, our ICT, Dedi, our corporate counsel, Titis, and myself as the planning and transformation. So now let's go ahead with the Telkomsel's 5G plan and why do we need 5G?
We're ready to contribute the realization of the future of Indonesia digital society. All of home needs will be more accessible. As well as your navigation processes. Digital lifestyle services will provide real-time and realistic experience. Digital advertising services with digital signage make it easier to seek information. Digital payment creates a new cashless payment society. API and big data analytics uplifting performances across the entire value chain, as well as building new business opportunities. With the combination of strong network infrastructure and wide coverage, excellent strategy execution and operation management, Telkomsel is ready to face the new challenges.
So we are heading towards 5G in the next 5-10 years, and we have to plan for all the possible scenarios that might entail in the future. So then we'll keep our competitive edge compared to our competitors. So why 5G? So here is the triangles of the 5G potentials. We're talking gigabytes in a second. We're talking smart city. We're talking interconnectivity between devices, vehicles, and your houses. Your electricity will all now powered into a big of network of data that can communicate to one another. So what is the difference between 4G and 5G? Let's talk speed. 4G can carry over the informations in a 200 megabytes of a second. In 5G, we're talking more than 1 gigabyte information that can be transferred in a second. And let's talk about latency. What is latency? Latency is the time lag between your click in the devices to that clicks being translated into a command to be executed by a system or a machine or a server, what have you. In 4G, we're talking about 20 to 30 milliseconds of lag time. In 5G, we're talking below 10 milliseconds or 1/100th of seconds. It might not be seems much to you in your everyday life by just clicking your phone. Probably 4G is enough. But if we're talking about the autonomous vehicle, for example, you're gonna need that speed because accidents or incidents can happen in a blink of an eye or maybe less than that. So we have to be able to process all of that information as fast as possible. And last but not least, let's talk about coverage. 4G coverage, it can accommodate 4,000 devices in a square kilometers, while 5G, it can accommodate up to 1 million devices at the same square. So let's imagine if you have 1 million devices interconnected to each other, sending all the informations in and out, there is enormous of information that we can process it or other can process it to produce more meaningful or an integrated informations that can produce another critical informations that you might not aware. For example, your behavior can be identified by what type of information that you're sending. It might sound dangerous at first. We recognize it and we realize it, therefore we also include it in our scenario planning that my other colleague will present to you next. So before that, I would like to bring you to our business model now. So Telkomsel identify the need. We identify the need of our customers. We respond in the time of crisis. For example, in this COVID-19 outbreak, we launched a product called MyOrbit, which will accommodate the increased demand for high-speed data. So essentially it's using our 4G coverage to provide reliable high-speed connections that can be used by all the people that have to work from home or from wherever they are at their own choosing while avoiding the virus outbreak. And we are heading towards the ongoing digital transformations. We produce Link Aja as one of our service that is non-money transactions platform that we can use to buy stuff, or we can use it to transact with each other without the paper money. And as the entrepreneurial inventions, here is one of the examples that we are showing you today, or we present to you today, is that our scenarios planning for the 5G technologies moving ahead. So we're not only about sitting in the present time, we are also looking at what's up next ahead. So we have to think as an entrepreneur, we have to predict what will come next. And what are distinct competencies? Our distinct competencies are we are the best voice quality in the service, in the business, and we have the widest area coverage across our beautiful archipelago nations, and we offer the premium value proposition. And our competitive advantage, we are one of the SOE, and we are the market leader in the business. So why being one of the SOE is our competitive advantage? Well, let's talk about the sustainability factors. As one of the SOE and the government directive of the synergy between SOE, we are the first guy to go to for another SOE if they require a reliable high-speed connectivity access, and we do our best to provide it to them. We are also a national pioneer in the cutting-edge IT. And our investment, what are investing on? We are investing in our talent development. We are investing in our best guys, and we are keep increasing our infrastructure, and we are always adhere to the international standard. And as a resources, as I've mentioned before, we are continuously improving our infrastructures. We are committing to provide the best service and the best coverage, and all of the remote, even the remote area in these nations, and then with the strong human capital, and always operate under the correct and legal licenses. And these all 7 steps are the whole business models that is enforcing one another to form a complete service and product for our nations in terms of the telecommunications business. So the next part is the scenario planning itself, which consists of the orientations, explorations, scenario creations, consequences and options, and last but not least is the integrations will be presented by my colleague, started from Rani, our marketing guys. And in the meantime, I will continue to watch the presentations with you and sipping my margarita. And again, I'm in Bali, and this is made possible by Telkomsel. Thank you.
Thank you, Haryo, for explaining the benefit of 5G. I'm Rani from Marketing Directorate. So, as the same with Haryo, that we're still working remotely. I'm in some other place in the world, in Switzerland. So it's quite chilly now. And okay, we'll continue. So before we are describing the scenario planning in Telkomsel into deep dive, I'd like to explain to you about the steps how to develop the scenario planning. So you can see that in the overall steps, there are 5 steps to be taken. So I'll explain it into what kind of phase, the process, and the output. So the first one is the orientation. So in the orientation, we identify the focal issue within the certain scope and time frame. What actually focal issue? How could you give the right answer to the wrong question? So focal issue is asking the right question to get the right answers. So the output is the focal issues itself, the definition of focal issue, and also who are impacted with those focal issue, or we can say the business environment. The second one is the exploration. The exploration to identify what are the driving forces, the uncertainties around these focal issues, and also the business environment. So the output is the process driver and the critical uncertainties definition. And the third one is the scenario creation itself. In rule of thumb, there are 2 by 2 matrix that can be reflected into 4 scenarios and imagining the narrative of each scenario. So it's like an extreme side of each pole, the east-west and the north-south. The output is the scenario and the narration. The fourth phase is the option consideration. So in this option consideration, we should review, prioritize, and select the implication of this scenario, so we can deliver the robust strategies, action, and change definition. And the last step is the integration. How we actually can integrate the scenario planning with the organization or the operational. So the output is usually, we call it a roadmap, or maybe you can hear the 5 years strategic plan or 3-year strategic plan. So those strategic plans are coming from this scenario planning. So we start into the first step, the orientation. So as you remember before, that the output of this phase is asking the right question or finding the focal issue. So since we've heard the benefit of 5G from Haryo, we can see that the importance of 5G in Indonesia. So the focal issue is, can Telkomsel successfully implement 5G technology in Indonesia within the next 5 years? So after we define the focal issue, we have to determine who are actually the business environment for this focal issue. There are 3 kinds of business environment, and also you need to put into consideration the macroeconomic, the ecological, and also the direct impacted stakeholder itself. So it's quite obvious. So the first one is about who is the user. The user is the Telkomsel itself, the organization, because the focal issue is the subject. Coming from the subject is, can Telkomsel implement this technology? And then the transactional environment is obviously the customers, retail and both retail and business, the direct competitors, the partners, and also Telkomsel subsidiaries. The last one is the contextual environment. So this is actually coming from the macroeconomics, the ecological part. So the first one in our contextual environment is obviously the government, because we as SOE more or less need to comply with government rules and regulation. And then the second one is global implementation of digital transformation in multiple industries. We need to benchmark how is digital transformation implemented in other countries for multiple industries. And then the last one is the economic drivers for 5G implementation. So that's for the step 1. So for the step 2 or the phase 2 is exploration, will be explained by Titis. So thank you for hearing me out.
So to identify the key uncertainties that significantly impact to the Telkomsel 5G implementation, we do the pastel analysis that conducted following the result. From the political 5G implementation regulatory approval and regulatory uncertainty every time government leadership changes. From the economy, the state budget availability for 5G infrastructure and development, and also the customer 5G purchasing power. The social, the land acquisition problem on BTS development and social awareness on data privacy. From the technology, the surrounding technology to support 5G existence and prevalence of 5G case technology like VR, drones, and autonomous cars. From the environment, there was increased emission from growing number of 5G data handling centers and scrapping out that non-5G devices. And the last one is the legal issue regarding data sovereignty, security, and management. To mapping out the result from the pastel analysis, we explore several factors to divide its importance and the uncertainty, such as hardware provider capability, infrastructure capacity, the rise of 5G wireless technology, regulation of BUMN, business scope, data security issue, collaboration with partners to provide variety of services, and user demand on high-speed connectivity, regulation on data sovereignty, customer readiness, and the last one, regulation on 5G and frequency. From the exploration, we know there are 3 factors to be the forcing driver from this implemented 5G, and the other was the uncertainties. Our team conclude that regulation on 5G and frequency and customer readiness are the key uncertainties that may impact Telkomsel 5G implementation.
Based on the various critical uncertainties that we have determined earlier, we can therefore create 4 possible future scenarios for Telkomsel's 5G implementation. The first scenario in this quadrant here is what we call everything in one's fingertips. In this scenario, government approval for the 5G implementation is acquired, and customer demand for 5G is high. This will result in an additional revenue as Telkomsel implements 5G, opening up opportunities for new industries to emerge in Indonesia, which would also open up new types of job opportunities. It should also be worth noting, implementation of 5G will pretty much reinforce the habit of working remotely post-COVID pandemic. So we named our second scenario as Solo's Paradox, which states that technology advancements does not necessarily mean an increase in business productivity or demand for such technology itself. So in our second scenario, although government approval for 5G implementation is acquired, customer demand for such technology turns out to be pretty low. Implications of this scenario include commercial failure of 5G implementation, possible obsolescence of 5G technology before it ever takes off in Indonesia. For early adapters, we would expect that data plans would be expensive as there is only limited demand. Last but not least, stalled development of 5G use cases in Indonesia as the demand for 5G technologies are pretty low. Our third scenario, which would sort of be our worst case scenario, is if there is low demand for 5G and government approval is also not obtained. We happily name this our digital dark age scenario, as should this scenario happen, Indonesia as a whole could be left behind compared to the technology progress globally. Existing businesses may face tougher global competition as the world adopts to 5G. Lagging behind in technology would mean businesses will need to compensate in other areas to remain relevant. We also see this scenario possibly affecting Indonesia's economy as a whole, as Indonesia becomes a less attractive investment location due to the lack of 5G infrastructure. Our final scenario envisions a situation where customer demand for 5G is high, but the regulatory approval of 5G implementation is not acquired. In this case, market will increase pressure to telco services to provide high-speed service using existing technologies. For telco providers, this would mean costly investments on building additional 4G infrastructure, which is the existing technology we have now. And also, with the high market demand, it would also open up interest from foreign competition to provide alternative high-speed data interconnectivity. These are the 4 scenarios that we predict might happen based on the key uncertainties of regulatory approval and customer demand. Our next slide will look deeper into how these scenarios will affect Telkomsel's plan of a nationwide 5G implementation within the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you, Mas Rina, for explanation before, and I will continue from now on. This page elaborates how the earlier defined scenario affects Telkomsel plan to implement 5G in Indonesia, from the key driving factor, early warning signals, dominant ops mode, consequences, and options. And we just jump into first scenario, which everything in one fingertip. The key driving factor are regulation approval and customer readiness. The early warning signal are positive signal of 5G regulation approval and positive 5G market survey. The dominant ops mode is the 5G infrastructure development. The consequences are 5G technology infrastructure establishment and the update on data security policies. And the option is Telkomsel to provide complementary use case technologies. The second scenario is a low paradox. The key driving factor itself is low market demand. The early warning signal are low market penetration of 5G devices and low use case available for 5G technology. The dominant ops mode is push for demand creation. The consequences are increased marketing effort, promotion 5G, then establish early partnership with the hardware or use case provider. And the option is offer discounted 5G plan. And the third scenario is starter inertial. The key driving factor is unfulfilled high customer demand. And the early warning signal is pessimistic sign of 5G regulation approval. And the customer surveys indicating displeasure of no 5G implementation. And the dominant ops mode is the market share protection. The consequences are respond to increased investment in 4G infrastructure and the reduced price of existing technologies. And the option is opportunity for foreign competitors providing high-speed data services. And the last scenario is digital dark age, with the key driving factor is technology lag. The EWS is pessimistic sign of 5G regulation approval, the negative public sentiment of 5G, and the stagnant technology growth compared to previous 5-year period. And the dominant ops mode is current status quo, and the consequences is left behind in technology compared to global peers, and R&D to strengthen existing technology. And the option is lagging overall investment in Telkomsel, possible drop in foreign company stock price. Okay, and this is the phase 5. The purpose of this phase is bridging and integrating the updated strategy and plan. The plan in this case is the deployment of 5G in Indonesia. To quickly determine the scenario that we will use, we must be sensitive and quickly make decisions with the early warning signal are seen. According to the one of basic issue of economy, we have to face the limitation and scarcity. Because each scenario requires a lot of resources, we must think quickly about the steps we should take. Preparing strategy for all scenarios will require significant resources due to a wide range of possibilities. To make it more effective and efficient, strategy and plan shall monitor closely and critical early warning signs periodically. It could be quarterly, monthly, or even monthly to monitor the early warning signal. The details and steps will be explained by my colleague.
To align to that scenario, how should Telkomsel break down the strategy to the roadmap in 5 years later? Firstly, Telkomsel start to conduct strategy for 5G marketing and promotion, which intended to introduce 5G to their customers. Second, in 2021, Telkomsel should be actively lobbying government to get approval of 5G license for implementation. Together with the other operators, Telkomsel can demand for acceleration. In parallel with that, Telkomsel start to assess what candidate providers or vendors should be appointed to supply and set up 5G infrastructures. In this case, Telkomsel should figure out the capability of vendors' product and what advantages and disadvantages of their products, and how much cost will be charged for implementation. Then, in case government already issue license for 5G implementation, Telkomsel embark to assess 5G implementation strategy. What area or cities should be prioritized to be the first deployment and when the launch will be taken place. On the other hand, Telkomsel should think about spectrum migration strategy as well. This is important to prepare in order to ensure 5G implementation goes smoothly and do not disturb business as usual. Spectrum migration should not impact directly to customer. Launching and completing 5G as a connectivity is not necessarily directly contributing to business outcomes. It needs to ensure customer and supporting devices ready for using 5G as a connectivity. If customer ready, Telkomsel has to create kind of 5G data plan with variety of price schemes. Explore opportunity to develop complementary 5G technologies such as IoT, virtual reality, augmented reality, and so on and so forth. The following things should be done are creating new business use case to enrich 5G adoption in services. And the last but not least is expand 5G supporting system, application, and tools. Those tasks can be done along with 2023 until 2025. But what if customer is not ready yet? What should Telkomsel do to trigger customer or market readiness for using 5G? The first year after 5G rollout or in 2023, Telkomsel can intensify marketing efforts to promote 5G products and provide discounted data plan which apply to appeal customer interest for using 5G. The next year, collaborating and doing partnership with OTT players or other technology company to create new business scheme that leverage 5G technology. In 2025, Telkomsel can explore more opportunities to develop complementary 5G technology and create more business case. However, back to the 2021, what plans should be done by Telkomsel for scenario if 5G license not approved yet by government? Telkomsel is going to run business as usual, continue lobbying again, and try to gain maximum benefit or profit by enhancing current technology, 4G and 3G. While pursuing of license to government, Telkomsel should observing the customer condition. If it turns out ready for 5G, then Telkomsel should widen their network coverage to increase market share. Therefore, if it is still not ready yet, optimization, marketing, and promotion of existing business and continue widen network coverage area are some options can be done to keep obtaining revenue. Those are roadmap and strategy plan of Telkomsel for every scenario and condition that possible happen in 5 years further.